Uh, so let's get started with our event for today. This event is being organized by the Sir Syed Global Scholar Award on the occasion of International Women's Day. Before starting the panel discussion, let me say some words about the SSGSA. So, Sir Syed Global Scholar Award was founded in 2006 by Dr. Shahida Andrabi, Dr. Rehan Bakri, Mr. Syed Ali Rizvi, and Dr. Saf Sheikh. And it has been running successfully with the help of advisors, many alumni associations, donors, supporters, and volunteers. Our major donors and contributors are IMRC, AMU Alumni Association of Greater Chicago, AMU Texas Alumni Association, and many individual donors that include even the past beneficiaries. So what does SSGSA do? We mentor and financially support AMU students for grad school applications. We regularly organize webinars on necessary skills for grad applications, recordings of which are available on our YouTube channel. We run an active online study group of AMU students for GRE preparation. Around 150 beneficiaries have got admission offers from different grad programs all over the world, like almost 22 countries as of now. Our academic footprints, our scholars have been leaving academic footprints in top universities, college institutes around the globe. And even in the corporate sector, they have been leaving footprints in many major multinational companies. Our team SSGSA is being co-chaired by Mr. Sajjad Sheikh and Mr. Sachin Gupta and supervised by the executive committee members. So what exactly is the objective of the SSGSA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team? First is diversity. We aim to promote the diversity of people and perspective in SSGSA. We also try to ensure fair treatment, accessibility, and equal opportunities for everyone associated with SSGSA. And then we try to build a welcoming and inclusive organization that supports and embraces differences and offers respect to everyone. Our agenda for today is to know the additional barriers a female professional faces in realizing her dream career, how to be resilient and fight the normalized gender biases in the workplace, and to build an active community of female students and professionals from AMU who can help each other with gender-specific issues. Our panelists for today include Dr. Yasmin Saikia, who is a Hard Nikokas Chair in Peace Studies, Professor of History, and the co-director of the Center of Muslim Experience in the US at Arizona State University. She has a master's degree in medieval history from Aligarh Muslim University and a master's and PhD in South Asian history from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She has authored several award-winning books and published over 3 dozen peer-reviewed articles and essays. Recently, she completed a trilogy on People's Peace and is now writing 2 new books on minorities in South Asia after 1947 and Freedom in the Muslim Mind, Middle Actors, International Networks, and Revolutionary Journeys 1915 to 1947. Our next panelist, Dr. Supriya Jindal, is currently working as a freelance medical science writer. She has a master's degree in biochemistry from Aligarh Muslim University and a PhD in molecular biology from Cleveland State University, Ohio. Before transitioning as a medical writer, she published several research articles on how ribosomes initiate protein synthesis. She also taught undergrad biology for many years. Besides science, as a breath work and meditation instructor, she loves to share mental resilience tools with the community at large. Our third panelist for today, Ms. Binish Zia, is currently working as the chief architect for the medical imaging segment in Intel's Health and Life Science Business Unit. She has a bachelor's degree in electronics engineering from Aligarh Muslim University and a master's degree in electrical and computer engineering from Portland State University. She is passionate about evolving technology in healthcare field and has been working with leading companies in the medical imaging field and ISVs to bring ingenious solutions to the healthcare. She has also been an active participant in various volunteering activities. Our last panelist for today, Ms. Anna Makhtar, is currently working as the project manager at Palo. She has a bachelor's and master's degree in architecture from Aligarh Muslim University and the University of Cincinnati, USA, respectively. She has been actively involved with the reviewing and mentoring aspect of SSGSA. She also enjoys writing poetries and has published several poetry collection books. Thank you very much, all four of you, for taking out time from your busy schedule and joining us today. So let's get started with our panel discussion for today. Our first question is, what are the major challenges or barriers a woman faces at work and how to overcome those? So I'll request Yasmin Saika ma'am to initiate the discussion.
Okay. Am I muted? No. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Challenges, so many, but I would first like to start off by saying that this is a wonderful program that you're trying to bring people together at various different levels of the careers, both as already established professionals and as students. So congratulations to this team that has put this together. And I think it's the first time that we're having such a discussion. When we start by talking about women in the workplace, particularly in the US, because I have lived there much longer than I have lived anywhere else in the world, one has to remember that women came to the workplace only after Second World War. When men went to the war front, women in the United States were expected to take up jobs at various levels, and they were mostly at the lowest level that you can imagine. It was like factory work and, you know, sometimes auxiliary nursing and at best secretarial work. But we have come a long way since then, right? So, but the barriers and challenges haven't ended. So I was just thinking, what are the challenges that every day I see my cohort or younger students come to the workplace, what they face? One of the biggest, I don't know, all of you work in the US, the other women too, is the pay gap. Women make 82% of what a man makes for every dollar. So there's, a kind of shortchanging women's work. Another very quick thing I would say is women who are trying to balance life with workplace is pregnancy discrimination in the US. There has been an act that was passed, but you'll constantly find that a lot of cases that are being filed as pregnancy discrimination in the workplace. Now, I don't want to get into the Me Too movement, but that movement actually made clear that there's a lot of sexual harassment in the workplace. Some of you, Binish, I heard you're a chief architect and, in a big corporation, you always face the glass ceiling. And there are less and less women who are in the top of the field. And always, as you see, it's a big challenge to really get beyond a certain kind of level in the workplace. Another big challenge is, which I have to take as a personal experience, is what I call the grooming gap. In a way, women are expected to look the part. I remember when I first started teaching, I was a very, very young faculty member, and I was the head of a department in my university, in where I was, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill at that time, actually called me and asked me that if I would dress in a way that would make people see that I'm a figure of authority. And men could wear jeans and come to teach, but women had to dress in suits, basically, and not come very casually to the classroom. So there are these challenges at work is really astounding, actually, that you're expected to play a certain kind of role. Like you have to look like much older than your age so that the students take you seriously. Then there are also different kinds of fields that are very exclusionary. I hear many of you are in the field of biotech and architecture, engineering. These are generally fields in which you don't see too many women because they're connected to the industry and they are considered to be high earning jobs. So women are not encouraged. In the humanities, it's very amazing that you find that the Department of History, where I am at, is a male-dominated field because history is considered to be connected to national identity, and men are the ones who actually are seen as the carriers of national identity and not women. And of course, there are other challenges, which I'm sure others will also talk about. So I see these as challenges, and that's what I have seen it over and over again. And so I'm bringing to you very commonsensical knowledge of what the challenges are. But your question also said, what do we do? It's not enough just to point out and say we have challenges. What do we do all of this? So I think that's the more important and interesting issue that perhaps some of my co-panelists would like to talk further. So I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts on this. So, Binishapi, would you like to add on this and how to overcome these challenges and barriers? Like, basically, we all want to know this part.
Okay, I can add to it, but let Binish first say, and then I can add a little to it if you want.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. And before I begin, just like Yasmin, ma'am, I would like to thank everybody for organizing this really good event and inviting me to be one of the panelists. So thank you for that. So what Yasmin ma'am said, just building on that, there are a lot of challenges from my perspective. The challenges can be categorized as from the title of the panel session even, is there's biases like gender bias, age bias, and then overcoming the big thing is you have to be resilient, much like your panel session says. The big thing is you have to be resilient. I mean, as Yasmin ma'am said, that women came to workplace much later, right? So it's really hard to change how people have grown up with the concept of women being just like the person sitting at home, feeding them. There is a certain concept that the society grows up, men and women equally. I'm not saying the biases are only shown by men. Women and men both show these biases, whether it's gender bias or age bias. So I think being resilient and really fighting and standing up for your right is the biggest thing you can do. You might feel that, am I being aggressive? Am I asking too much? Am I standing myself out? So I would just say that stay resilient and fight for your right thing. For example, I'll give you a very simple example, like in big meetings, usually in big corporate environments where I sit, maybe I'm the only female engineer and it's a group full of 10, 15 men sitting there. And it's really hard for you to put your point forward because women tend to be more quiet. They wait for that perfect pause is to raise their hand and be like, I have a point to make. And it might be too late. The meeting might have ended or somebody might have already put your point forward. So I feel like in situations like that, and that is just one of hundreds of examples that we live through every day. The point is like, you have to be strong, resilient. And if something comes up, you just make your voice heard. So you have to fight for your own rights and you have to be strong, confident, bold that I am here. I have a seat on this table for a reason. So I should raise my voice and put my point forward, because what's the worst could happen? Like people laugh or something you said is not incorrect, but if you didn't say it, nobody would even know that you exist in that room. So you have to force your own self to show your existence, help people overcome those unconscious biases by showing that you are a role model in whatever field you are. So my short answer is be resilient, be strong and confident and bold, and make sure you show yourself, you get your voice heard, and don't wait for somebody else to push you forward.
So basically putting our foot down and taking a stand for ourselves is the answer. But
I would also add to it, Vinesh and Sadia, that in order to be resilient and to stand up for something, you need to have a good support system. So creating awareness of these problems like you guys are doing right now, I think is the first step, is to really build that network. And so although you may be a single person in the room, to have that voice means you should know that there are many other voices behind you. You're not alone there. There are so many people who are just standing, you're standing on the shoulders of many other people, and there are many behind you. So you have to carry that forward. It's not an easy task. I'm honestly going to tell you, it's a very difficult task. But creating awareness, building networks, and constantly discussing about these things are important ways to overcome it. But Binish made a very important point that there is a way of talking women down in a meeting or talking over a woman, not giving her an opportunity to speak. So sometimes writing good notes And sharing them in advance with your colleagues can also be very helpful.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anam or Supriya, do you want to add something to this?
I think everything has been covered very well, and I would not disagree, or or I cannot agree more than what they both are saying. The fact that there is unconscious bias, and then women are still marginalized. Though we have come a long way, looking at the history, I think there's a significant amount of improvement that going back to and what Yasmin ma'am was talking about when women started working right after the Second World War to where we are now, but still a lot of that happens. And then again, on a more personal front is, what Pinish was talking about. I've encountered it several times that, where you're in a discussion with the majority of men, you really have to put an effort in, making your voice heard. Or a lot of times I've also noticed that, to the degree that there's a male counterpart, the work that you are doing and the amount of acknowledgement that you should get for your work, there is a bias towards, a male counterpart who has done the same amount of work. So, those kinds of things are definitely there. And I can talk in the second question, like how I dealt with it, or how can we actually overcome that? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anam, would you like to add something?
First of all, I loved how Yasmin ma'am put the thing in perspective. And even now, I think the whole idea boils down to the fact that if it's something that's like really good, really important, and really powerful, then usually the men would have the bigger share of it. And if it's the smaller job that women can do or anybody can do, but it's usually the invisible front that women would be part of it. Especially in the engineering and the definitely in the construction industry as well. There is this expectation that the important decisions are usually the guys make that. Also speaking to Binish's point that there are several times that you feel intimidated because you don't have the numbers. But we should remember that if we're there at the table, we're as good as anybody else on that table, and we don't have to question ourselves because there is no like extra ingenious solutions that a guy would say that you wouldn't say, or like there's no extra like thought-provoking point that somebody else would say but you cannot say. The easiest kind of things also is to, of course, make notes and then be at that table, be nearest to the power, sit down at the table and don't be at the backside. You don't have to change your personality, but you can always make yourself seen.
Okay, thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts. Let's move on to the next question. So would you like to share some strategies that you employed to cope with the biases and stereotyping, which I guess we all covered already, but then there's still some anecdotes that you would like to say or share with the young girls listening to you, and something that they can benefit from you. Like, you all are at a position of power at the moment. You are there where there is aspiring to reach. So do you want to share some secrets?
Yeah, I can go ahead with that one. And I was actually thinking about quite a lot about this, that, like what was the strategy that I employed in terms of overcoming this issue? So the way I like to look at it, this is like a three-pronged approach. The first thing is acknowledging that this issue, this problem exists, as women, as girls, young girls. Our society, like a lot of times, condition us to think that, if this is something like that is happening, it's okay, it's normal. So there's a natural tendency to brush it off, and not acknowledge that this is what's happening with me. So I think the first part of it is acknowledging, and this is what we are doing in this discussion right here, sharing our experiences that, oh, this is what happens. And so not feeling, that I'm not good enough, or, self-doubting. So that doesn't help, right? So the first thing is, yes, it exists. And so acknowledging it. The second approach that worked with me was also, working with myself. So again, it's tied up to the first part that, we do not acknowledge it. And then if we acknowledge it, then we do not feel confident about it, like, okay, what do I do with it? How do I deal with it, right? So working with myself was the main thing that, knowing that women inherently have a lot of resilience, like Binish was talking about it, being resilient, being strong. But a lot of times we do not own that power within us, right? I don't know how many of us can relate to that. I definitely can, like for a long time, I felt that, oh no, how do I deal with it? I'm not strong enough. But at some point it clicked with me that, no, I have to take responsibility about it, right? Like nobody else is going to do it unless I raise this issue, unless I talk about it or I come up strong. Nobody else is going to do it for me. So the second is, owning yourself, owning your own power, working with yourself. And then the third thing is, moving together, again, which is what we are doing right now here. Like tribe has a lot more power, right? So coming together as, one unit, and, that goes a long way and also brings a lot of strength inside of us as a community. And I like to give an example here. There's a recent book that came out from New York Times journalist, and this is called as The Exceptions, Fight for Women in Science. And this book is talking about these 16 women who were faculty at MIT. And this happened in the late 90s, that these 16 women, they actually forced the MIT administration to accept that how MIT was discriminating against, the female scientists, the female faculty. So, and I guess this is what their story was about, that, one person talking about it wasn't enough. And then they worked together secretly. They got all the facts together, simple things about, how the lab space was much more for men than for women. So they did all of that analysis and they worked towards it, right? So summing it, like working together, working, as a community also goes a long way, gives us strength, and the message reaches far and wide. So that's, I think, is my strategy to deal with it, right? Like acknowledging, working with yourself, being confident enough, not doubting, and then working together as a community, as a group.
Okay, thank you. There's one thing that I personally want to address here. So it's like the biases and stereotyping are just so normalized in the workforce, like workplaces all the time. There is a subtle mansplaining going on all the time if you're working, or microaggression. Oh, you're so strong for a girl. Oh, you are so intelligent for a girl. So how do you deal with these? And I really want to have you guys touch this exact point. So maybe Yasmin ma'am, can you say something about it?
Certainly. You see, the stereotyping just did not start in the US. This started for me at Aligarh. I went to AMU as a class 11 student, along with several other students from Assam at that time. I'm originally from Assam in India. And I remember people thought that people from the Northeast are junglies and they live on trees. And they said, how come you guys are so smart? And, you speak English, and how means I talked all along. And how come you're, so in Aligarh also, people had awful biases against people from other communities or other places. Now, when I came to the US as an MA student, it was very unheard of that single women went to the United States to study humanities, history. So I didn't fit any of the categories that people were used to seeing Indian students, male students. There were very few female students at that time, and most of them came for engineering. And I was studying history, which is a complete anomaly. So people didn't know where to fit me in. None of the Indian students ever spoke to me because I was not an engineering student. I was from Assam. I was not from any of the places that people recognize. The American students had never met an Indian student who comes to study humanities, so I didn't fill that category. So, and there were no other granted women students for me to interact with. So building resilience had to come from somewhere deep inside me rather than from something external. And you're from a different generation of people compared to me, right? So what did I do, if you ask the question, the personal story that you're asking, arriving in the US as a 22-year-old kid almost that I was, in the middle of winter, even learning how to walk in the snowy place like Wisconsin itself was a major challenge, but it happened. One of the things I would say is I was very, there was a mosque in the university, very close to university. So I've never seen a mosque where women actually went to the mosque. And the first time in America that I actually had this opportunity of going to a mosque and praying with others. And that gave me some women friends who are not connected to university. So I had a community beyond the university that was very helpful, that gave me a social life that I needed as a young person. And of course, there were some Aligarh people. Of all things, there were some Aligarh old boys at the university doing postdocs, and they really helped me. So I would say, as Supriya says, building those kind of support groups, those networks, you can start there everywhere there are ABU students, like you guys are now all over the world now with this program. So build that thing where no matter what you study, is to reconnect with people that you know, strengthen your base as much as you can, and then cope with the other kind of external problems that you have to deal with. And you have to be honest, you have to talk about it. And you can bring in other people who know very little about your culture and your place to see you as a human being. It's an everyday struggle, and you get there. I can't remember, it was 34 years ago, it was a long time ago.
Thank you, ma'am. So Beni, Shippi, or Anam, do you want to add to this something? Your
My
anecdotes?
only comment to that, I resonated completely with Yasmin ma'am and what Supriya said, because felt and experienced exactly same things and 100% agree with what they say. To your point, if somebody shows you microaggression, or somebody says, oh, I've never seen a girl that smart in mathematics, or like Yasmin ma'am was saying, I had the same thing in Aligarh because I was part of engineering class, electronics engineering. There's like 3 girls in a group of 70 class. Guys would all be like, oh, you're getting extra points because you write very pretty. But then you're like, what about mathematics? I still have full points. Come on, I can't draw or write anything there. So you experience bias all throughout your life, whether you're in university or outside. And each one of you who's attending this panel session, I think you already are confident and strong and have your own dreams and goals to achieve. So you're already taken that one step forward of being and pushing and standing up for yourself. So on the microaggression, if somebody says something, over the years I've learned, my first response was always I'll be very mad and upset about it. I'm like, not really happy, get mad about it. But what I would say is just take a deep breath and ask the person, why do you think a girl cannot be smart? It might be a funny joke for you, but explain me, because for me, I do not think it's funny. And I take it personally as my responsibility to change that thought process. So I think asking people, so that you can go back to that whole concept of educating. People don't know that they're doing something wrong. They might just find it's a funny thing or okay thing to say. So make sure, ask them, so you get that time to get educated yourself, but also use that opportunity to educate that thing so they don't go and repeat it against somebody else.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So how difficult is it to adjust as a woman in an international workspace? Yasmin ma'am has already shared about her experience moving to US. So let's start with maybe Anam this time.
Yeah, sure. So when I moved, I felt like my experience was, I would say, as challenging as any kind of like new foreign person in a new land. And then I'm sure with like progress in the equality, I didn't feel a lot of bias as a woman. I just felt the discomfort of moving as just a new person in a new land. That being said, I think internationally as well, some of the things are always there, which we need to address. You just need to be more firm. I feel like as a woman, we tend to be a little too nice. And you can always be nice, but you just need to be a bit more firm. I also feel like women are really good at assessing situations and managing situations. So just make sure that you are building on all your skills and you're acting on it in such a way that it is close to the power. Like if it's something related to your projects, make sure that your communication, your management, your observations are heard across the board that impact the project. If somebody is saying things, they always have the opportunity to ask them questions, ask them clarifications, like Dinesh said. And you also have the option to just redirect the conversation to the work and just focus, make this a part of your personality, that you are all about the work at this point and you know what you're doing. So I would say that's one thing. And internationally, overall, I think communication is a really big challenge for anybody. So just improve your communication. Even LinkedIn says that communication is the #1 skill that is felt across all industries is not good enough. So there is always a way to communicate better. Always, always. Just build on that.
Okay, thank you, Anam. Let me frame this question a bit differently. So, how will you compare the international workspace and working in India? If you compare in that way, what would be your comment?
Um, so personally, I feel the international workspace is better than India. And the reason for that is it's related to safety, it's related to less invisibility. And then when you're in a new kind of environment, you have the option to uh, create a certain like bias or stereotype for your self. If you're in an Indian community, there's always a ton of bias in there. And it could be anything. It could be like your religion, it could be your caste, it could be your language, it could be your clothes, like it could be a ton of things because you're already in that system. And then when you move out of it into a new system, I think you have more opportunities to create what that definitions could be for you. So I feel like it's a better environment in the international space, but that's my opinion.
Would the rest of the panelists want to add something to it?
Yeah, I'll add to it. I'll add
Okay.
to it. I agree with what Anam is saying, that perhaps because there are very strict laws in the United States, at least, that provide certain kind of protection, you can take recourse to those laws if you are discriminated in your workplace. So, comments on your dress or your accent or your anything cannot be made that lightly in the United States as people do that in India. I think the discrimination is very different. But I have to add there that in the American Academy, where I am, have always been part of the American Academy, it is not an easy task to be an international person and actually really climb that ladder. Okay, to be a tenured professor of color in the United States as a woman comes with a lot of hard work. And I'm not discriminating men or women. It's not everybody has to work very hard. But if you are of an immigrant background, you already have the problem of not having support system. You have to stand there on your own. Okay, it's not like working in India where you have family, you have somebody to go cry on their shoulders. There you have to stand up. I know earlier Supriya and Binish made this thing that you be resilient, you be strong. Where do you get that strength from? You really have to do that. So in the international workspace, you have to prove yourself on your own. And the system, although it's very protective, is also extremely demanding. So to be, I know for myself that as a tenured professor, I have a position as a chair, an endowed chair in peace studies, which is an unheard of thing for an Indian Muslim woman to have got to that place. I don't know anybody else who has got such a position, okay, in the humanities. So it comes with a lot of work, building support systems, as we are saying, working with a variety of people, learning over and over and over again in that international workspace what works. You're a constant student, that I will say. Although you are also working, you are a student continuously learning how to survive in this system and to excel.
And I would like to add that, Yasmin ma'am, that, said it very appropriately, that as an immigrant and climbing that academic ladder is very hard. And on top of that, you being a woman, I don't think so you are incentivized for being a woman, like it's almost like if you decide to be a mother, there is some sort of a bias or discrimination that, oh, now you will not be able to give enough time to your work. So the system doesn't make it at all easy for us, considering the fact that women are actually the ones who are taking this race forward, right, taking the humans forward. But there is no support, extra support for that. In fact, it's the other way around. Like I've experienced it so many times where people are like, oh, now you're a mother, so you probably will not be able to take up this project, or, like you'll have different priorities right now. And I'm sure a lot of us, who are having that kind of a responsibility of a caretaker towards a family member, is people look through you from that lens, and they might not look a man from that perspective. I don't know. Has anybody else felt that? But I definitely felt it.
No, you are absolutely right, Supriya. There is this Pregnancy Discrimination Act that had to be passed precisely because of this reason, that women are discouraged in the workplace from having children, because it means you cannot be at work. Okay? The maternity leave in the US is extremely short, as you know. It goes against me, right? I know fellow professors who basically did not get tenure at the time that they had to get the tenure, because they could not produce the books and all the stuff that they had to publish. In America, it's publish or perish in the academy, right? So there are already inbuilt things that go against women. Now, as you talked about the book, where the 16 exceptions that you talked about, this is what women have been networking and saying, you have to look into women's life from many different perspectives. And they have been successful to some extent, but not always.
True. Okay, let's move on to the next question. And I have to be very honest here. When I was framing this question, I felt the irony. We are doing this event. We are basically, it's about International Women's Day, and then we are here asking the question. Like, as women, we are supposed to be, perfect in every field. We are supposed to excel in our professional field, and then at the same I'm sorry. Ajay, can you take care? Thank you. I'm so sorry for the glitch. So where was I? So exactly. I mean, as women, we are supposed to be excelling in our professional and the personal life at the same time. If there is a guy, we'll never ask him this question, how to balance work and family responsibilities at the same time. Like we'll never ask the guy. But then, and again, some women are lucky enough to not really face these kind of problems. They have a good support system where they have good support from their partners, their families, but then some are not very lucky, and they still have to take care of the family. They still have to look after their professional career and then also look after the family responsibilities. So you being the professional females, how do you manage the work-life balance? Let's start with maybe Supriya this time.
Yeah, this was actually, not an easy answer. Abdul. This was not at all an easy question to answer. And I was thinking, is there actually, a perfect answer? Okay. Is there actually a perfect answer? And what came to me was probably the perfect answer is the one that is right to you, that feels right to you, or that is the right answer that, that you think is right. And I guess in my case, I felt that, there were times in my life where I was like, I had to prioritize things, right? Like I had to choose one over the other. And I think that all of that came with having this clarity in the mind that what is important to me in that moment, right? Because again, going back to the same thing, that as females, we have several hats, right? We juggle different roles, different responsibilities in our life. So I think how to get that perfect balance is really is a very personal, subjective answer, and depends on each one of us. And I think it's very important to get, to have priorities, like what is important to you in your life at that point? And how do you get that priority? How do you figure that out? Is having clarity in your mind. And I guess trying to figure out, that's the bigger question, right? Like, how do you find that clarity? Like, what is more important to me in this point over the other? I think really comes from the fact that we taking time for ourselves. Like a lot of times we are so caught up in taking care of other things, taking care of other people, our professions, that we do not really give time to our own personal needs, and the fact is you can only give, what you have. So unless your cup is full, how will you give it back to others? How will you give it back to your family, to society, to your profession, to your career? So all of this boils down to the fact, for me at least, that, taking time for myself, healing myself, energizing myself, whatever that is, in different ways. Like, for example, in my case, I really tie my meditation and breathwork practice to keeping me sane and healthy. And it could be anything for any one of us. It could be like maybe spending time with the family, finding out a hobby that works for you, or going out in nature and spending time with yourself. So, it's very important that we give time to ourselves, as individuals, as women, because a lot of times we feel that we are overburdened with responsibility and we just keep on giving. And at some point we feel drained and, exhausted and not having enough confidence and feeling like really, powerless maybe. So yeah, I think we just have to shift the lens inside, find out what is that for me, taking time for myself, and then, deciding moment by moment by moment, what is that I need, and finding that right balance. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you so much. Venushapi, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, I love Supriya's answer. Before I answer, I would want to say two things. First thing, I don't think there is a work-life balance. You cannot be ambitious and expect you will have work-life balance. So full stop, period. For me, that's my perspective. Secondly, Sadia, when you asked, you said, men are now not asked this question. I think we need to change that thought process, because men need to be asked the same question. And a lot of time I ask my management the same question: how do you do? Is there a work-life balance? And if there is, how do you manage? Because expectations from men in society are also challenging in a different way. As women have their own challenges, men have their own societal challenges. So I think we should change the thought process that work-life balance question exists for both genders and all kinds of genders. Okay, so I think that's two things I would make. And then going back to what Supriya said, it's a very personal thing. And for me, what has worked is like, figure out your priorities, and your priorities are going to be different in every phase of life. Even leaving India and coming and deciding to stay in US was a big personal sacrifice for me, because every single day I fight that I'm not there for my parents when they need me. I'm still here, and I'm like 25, 30 hours of flight away to be of any good to them when they really need me. So you have to find your own answer. Is like, is this what I want to do? Am I okay with leaving my parents? Then sometimes when you're here, the big question for single men and women will come, oh, when are you going to get married? And should I choose getting married over pursuing my career? Should I go back to India? Should I find a husband from India or from US? Should I stay within my community? Should I go outside my community? All these social pressures you will get. At the same time, you're like, I really want to be the best in my class. I want to get the best dream job I've ever done, or whatever I wanted to in my life. And then that is another phase of your life that you'll have to go through, and you'll have to decide, what is my priority? Is getting married my priority, or is achieving my dreams, ambitious dream, whatever it is, that is my priority. So I think you have to figure that out. Then you'll be in another phase that you get married, or you're in a different age group where you're like, should we have kids or not have kids? And if I have kids, how will that affect my progression? Just like Supriya said. So every single phase of your life, you will be thrown this question on like, what should I prioritize? Because no matter what you do, you're sacrificing something else. So what has worked for me is, it's always family is priority number one, health is second, and then work is third. No matter what, I make it really clear And in setting that priorities, what has helped is I've been very clear with my managers, with my leadership. It's like, this is my priority and you have to respect this, but also be clear. Is like, if when I went to maternity leave, I had joined a new group, everything was new, but before leaving, I was like, I need this XYZ done when I come back, and I want my promotion. If you don't give me a promotion, you have to tell me why would I not get a promotion. And it was, I don't know how many people have got it, but when I come back, I get my promotion. So you have to be very clear at what you want from who you want at the time, and make sure you're working throughout the process and making that clarification in whatever you're doing is like, this is where I want to be, and these are my priorities, and this is the phase of my life, and you have to respect it, but you also have to get their feedback on why would it be difficult for them to support you in whatever you're doing. So I think those would be my responses, but it's a very personal thing that Supriya said, and every one of us will have to deal it differently.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to add, Yasmin ma'am or Anam, do you want to add something to this?
I do, but I'll let Yasmin ma'am go first.
I did not go first, as I agree with everything you have said. The balance is your own, whatever it is. It's not based on other people's yardstick. You create your own yardstick and say, this is what life has given me, and this is what I live with. And be firm on that decision. Be proud of yourself. Don't try to live another person's life.
Yeah, and I loved Supriya's and Binish's answer, very profound and like great examples really overall. And I just wanted to add to that a little bit is that, well, it's just like asking for your raise or just like asking for your promotion. You ask at your home also what you want your responsibilities and priorities to be and not to be. And then you ask at work also, this is what you want, this is your skill, this is your expectation, and here's all the reasons you deserve this. And you cannot be perfect everywhere. So obviously you have to manage in some places you'll be great, and maybe if at work you have expectations from if at home you have expectations from like your spouse or family or stuff like that, then just like in work you have to make that kind of known what your limitations are and what you're willing to do.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next question. How can women build resilience and a strong support network in the workplace? And what strategies can women use to advocate for themselves and negotiate for what they deserve? I think we had been talking about this a lot, building the support system and being resilient at workspace. So is there any anecdote that you guys want to share? Maybe we can start with Yasmin ma'am.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, because this is something I will share with you people, because I remember this advice came to me from women mentors in the university when I first joined, and I didn't know what the system of tenure is and what it takes to get tenure and all of that. One of my senior women colleagues called me aside, and she said the first year is a time to make relationship with senior colleagues in your field, whatever your field of work is, whether it's in the corporation or in the academy or in the medical clinic or wherever. The senior most people, try to reach out to them within your first year. Ask them if they will have lunch with you and give you advice of what they had faced and how they had overcome things and where they are. By the second year of your work, make sure you meet all your cohort, the people who had joined in the same year that you did. They may be from engineering, they may be from medical science. I'm talking the university setup, which will be the same thing in a multinational corporation. Meet the people of your cohort, the women, make friends with them, try to meet them beyond the professional setting. Go out for coffee and tea. And by the third year, try to yourself become a mentor to the younger people who are now there. That is how you build networks and share the best practices in your field. Be generous about it. Share it with the juniors so that they don't make the same mistakes that some of us have made it in the beginning. So that they go to advocate for women, you need to build strength, and strength comes from building associations and organizations within a system, whether it's the corporation or the academy, to sort of advocate on behalf of women. strength comes from, as earlier Supriya said, becoming a tribe, not to be against other people, but to be able to speak about your needs and your the needs that women have and how to sort of try to fulfill them or develop rules and regulations that will help women achieve the goals that they had set for themselves, for which they had worked very hard to get to that place. I saw Ali Bhai had said that, put up a question there, that what are the policies that employers can make to make it more inclusive? It is by women first coming together and then negotiating with people on the ground. So stage by stage, first, second, and third year. By third year, you should be there helping others.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. And we are in a bit of a time crunch, so let's quickly wind up. So Vinishappi, Supriya Appa, or Anam, do you want to quickly add to this and we can move to the last question? Okay, then I think we can just have your opinion. How can SSGSA help to empower women at AMU or elsewhere? We need your inputs on this. So maybe let's start with Vinishappi.
Sure, great question. I think doing events like this is definitely really, really good, like pulling people from different age groups, from different backgrounds together to help our young generation. It's really good. The second thing, which Yasmin ma'am mentioned, is also having mentors. I know SSGA does that, but if younger girls in AMU are really looking for women mentors in specific field, we can create a program to just focus on women mentors, one-on-one mentors. You get it for X amount of time. You can start short or long, but just getting that mentors is good. And then the third thing that was mentioned in the chat also is like coming together as a group and helping change policies in the workplace is also really important. That is something maybe the current group of SSGA scholars or existing AMU alumni can do, is to really support different organizations that are pushing forward with the government to change policies. Because when I was pregnant with my first kid, what I found surprising is that US and Papua New Guinea are the only two countries in the whole world that do not have maternity leave. There is no maternity leave. People think you get a leave, but it's your disability leave. So if you break a leg and you have to stay home, is equal to you're having a baby, which I find hilarious, but that's how it exists. So what I would say is those would be the three things I would start with if SSGA can help empower women.
Okay, thank you so much, Vinishappi. Yasmin ma'am, Supriya ma'am, or Anam, do you want to add something to this?
I'll quickly add to, all the things that Binesh mentioned. And then one specific task I think could be helpful would be creating a Facebook group, maybe if it's just meant for, like women, where they can very safely and without any inhibition share what they're going through and then, discuss. So they feel like supported, they feel like, oh, there are people like them and they do not have any, fears or, yeah.
I would, sorry to interrupt. We do actually have a WhatsApp group specifically for the female scholars and everyone. So yeah, and we are also trying to form, like a women's cell so that we can address all the issues, gender-specific issues that are being faced by the female scholars in general. So yeah.
That's great.
Anyway, thank you. Bhai, to say the vote of thanks. Ali Rizvi Bhai.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you, Sadia, for this. So here's a word of thanks for all of the people who came and joined. And just before I start to say the word of thanks, many years ago, I was giving a word of thanks in some event in Boston. And at the end of my word of thanks, somebody from the audience shouted, Muqarrar Irshad once more. So I hope nobody says that today. So on behalf of the Sir Syed Global Scholar Award, I'd like to thank all of the people who participated in our event today. Women in the workplace, barriers and bias and resilience. It is such an important topic and it was truly inspiring and enlightening experience for all of us. And we hope that many who joined found it informative and beneficial. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our esteemed guest panelists, Professor Yasmin Saikia from Arizona State University, Binish Zia from Intel, and Supriya Singh, our freelance medical writer, and Anam Akhtar, the project manager at Palo Architect, for giving their valuable insights and experiences with us. As always, Professor Yasmin Saikia is a delight to listen to. She was a few days ago in another event, and she sort of floored everybody by her experiences and what she talked about. And each of the other people who are all, by the way, very valuable SSGC scholars, both, Binish and Supriya and Anam, each of them brought out the unique perspectives on this topic, and we truly appreciate their openness and honesty. I'd like to thank also Sadia Tanveer, you, yourself a PhD scholar, and also an SSGSA awardee as well, for doing a fantastic job in moderating the discussion today and creating a very comfortable space for everyone to share their views and questions. I cannot forget to mention the many, many volunteers from our outreach team who worked tirelessly to promote this event, preparing the flyer and sending invites to all our well-wishers around the world. We also want to acknowledge the team leaders, Sajjad Sheikh, for organizing this event, and our other co-chair, Sachin Gupta, who took on the challenging task of bringing all the functions of SSGSA in sync in a very short amount of time from the previous chair, Salman bin Kashif. Further, we are quite grateful to our many teachers and professors and resource speakers, administrators like Dr. Irfan Lakhani, who, by the way, for many of you who may not know, he just came to the USA, I think 2 days ago. He's visiting from Mumbai and is meeting with MIT professionals and teams there in trying to find an alliance between MIT and their organization in Mumbai. And I was to meet him, and when he called me up and I said, we are in a webinar, and he joined with his friends right away. So thank you, Dr. Lakhani, for joining. So we thank all of you, and there are many deans I saw, the chairs of departments and faculties who took the time to join and show the support. We truly appreciate their time and guidance and blessings, which have been quite instrumental in the success of SSGSA. Most importantly, I am also grateful to the students and scholars who participated in the event, because this was also being broadcast live on Facebook. And we organized this event for them, their success, because we believe you, the students, your success is our success. And we hope that the insights shared by our esteemed panelists will help you better prepare for the challenges you may face in your respective fields and give you the confidence to pursue your dreams. In ending, I'd like to thank everyone who joined us for this wonderful event. And I'm missing some names: Tahir Barhani, especially, and Muhammad Azhar, and Atiyah Usmani for doing a fabulous job of making this seamless event go through. And we hope it has been a very meaningful experience for all of the people who joined. And we encourage you to stay connected with SSGSA as we continue to celebrate and support the achievements of women scholars around the world. And the legacy of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan continues, and we are very proud to be doing our small little bit in carrying it forward. Thank you, everyone. And to those who are in India, have a good night. And those who are in other parts of the world, including America, good morning or good afternoon to you. Thank you, and wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much, Ali Bhai. And I thank everyone for joining us today. It was a great event, and we all gained a lot. Thank you, all the panelists. Now I think we can stop.